Welcome to Financial Minds Meet the Experts. I'm Jaime Agostino. On this show, we're joined by financial industry experts to talk about topics, trends, and themes that credit union professionals need to know about. Today on Financial Minds Meet the Experts, we are speaking with Mike Moyer, Senior Application Analyst, Project Specialist with Vizzo Financial, about FedNow and instant payments. Mike, thank you so much for joining me today. But before we get started, would you mind telling our listeners just a little bit about yourself?
Well, thanks for having me, Jamie. This isn't my forte, but I was obliged to do this, and so I'll do my best. So anyhow, yes, I am Mike Moyer. Jamie did give you my role here at the corporate, what I do. I have been in the financial industry. I'm going to date myself here, about 35 plus years of in the financial industry, mostly within the payment realm. I started when direct deposit came out and worked my way through direct deposits to online banking to wire transfers, international wires. So anything electronic, I was pretty much involved with in my career. So I've been with the corporate now. It's over 18 years that I've been with the corporate. I was formerly the head of the ACH and EFT department, but brought into this new role, which I manage the payment application that we use here at Vizzo for our member credit unions.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you. So let's get started. So, Mike, you got to explain it to me. What is an instant payment? How would it be used? What are the different types of instant payments?
Okay, so the best way that I describe what an instant payment is just what the word says. It's instant. It happens immediately in seconds. Today in the world, probably the closest instant payment that we have is the um, the ACH, that the same day ACH that gets to the institution same day, but it's got to travel through different steps in order for it to get there same day.
Mhm.
Whereas for instant payments, what we're talking about is they're there in seconds, they're immediate. The funds are going to be there immediately. And with the instant payments, since we're talking about instant payments, it's going to be a 24/7 environment, meaning you initiate it, it's there, it goes. What are the different forms of instant payments? Well, you could have an individual that's paying a business for invoices, or you have a business that you need to get supplies for, but yet it's the last minute and you need to pay your provider in order to get those supplies. Those are the kind of things that instant payments can be used for. A payroll company that needs to get a payroll out last minute, that forget to fund their account or whatever, they can send an instant payment and get that to the receiver within seconds.
Wow. Okay. All right. My mind's already kind of spinning. I can see a lot of applications that, this could be used for. And we all know Vizo Financial, they're participating in the pilot program for FedNow. When will this service be launched and what features will be available to members of the corporate when FedNow launches?
Okay, yeah, so we are a pilot for the Fed now. There are various institutions as well as other corporates like ourselves that are part of the pilot program. And what we do, we meet with the Fed on a monthly basis, sometimes twice a month, going through what their requirements are, what is going to be required for us as a processor for these instant payments, and to kind of get all of those connections set up with the Fed in order to provide these type of instant payment services for our member credit unions. So as far as the timing of when this is going to be available, the Federal Reserve says that it's going to be available in the 2023. Now, there's no specific time as far as a month when it's available. It could be first quarter, second quarter. Those things are still being worked out because we're still working through the requirements and things are always changing with the requirements so we can kind of get this all ready to go. What we're going to offer when this is launched in 2023, There are different forms of instant payments. You have what we call a sender and a receiver of instant payments. You have settlement processing, reporting, liquidity management, request for payment. So these are different types of forms of instant payments that will be available for FedNow. What we're going to have available is the first step, that we're going to be receiving instant payments. I'll get to the sending part later when we get into the conversation, what's required for sending. But as far as our side and for Vizzo, for our members, we're going to have the ability to receive instant payments, provide the reporting, and also the settlement part of the transaction.
Okay. Now, how does the FedNow service differ from the traditional FedWire services?
Well, the difference of that is, if you look at the FedWire service, when we say FedWire, that's most likely and mostly your domestic wires. So just think about how a domestic wire is initiated. Somebody has to come into the credit union, or the credit union has an online form. Whatever that initiate process takes place, somebody has to get that information, plug it into the wire application, create it, approve it, send it, comes to us to process for the credit union. Then our staff has to do it, send it from there, and then we send it out to the receiving institution. Well, the receiving institution gets the FedWire. Depending on their processing, that could sit there for an hour until it gets actually credited to the member's account or the customer's account. So you've got some lag time in there. The thing with the FedWires is they use a format. It's mostly a text format, but they have their own field requirements. But you're limited for a FedWire as to how much data you can put in a FedWire message. Whereas FedNow, as I said earlier, those are going to happen right away. Once you enter it and send it, it's going to get to that institution. It's going to know to credit that institution. If it's not going to get credited, it could come back. Again, we'll talk more about what's going to be involved with that. But in the FedNow payment, they're using what they call a XML data. And I know I'm kind of getting too much into programming, but with that type of data, you do have fields, but you have more data that you can put in there. So for instance, you can put a lot of invoicing information. So when instant payments come out and FedNow payments come in, you might have a business that wants to send an instant payment and they have a list of invoice. Well, there's a huge amount of data that you can put in for these FedNow payments. So it's what they call their ISO 20022, and ISO stands for the International Organization for Standardization. So this is what it's used for. The reason why they're using this is because it leads to more operation efficiency, because you need to have everything in the proper fields in order for this payment to work. If that's not in there, that payment's not going to flow. So it helps with the efficiency, the exchange of the data, the straight through processing, and hopefully to reduce the errors and take the manual step out of it, because there shouldn't be any manual intervention on a FedNow payment. It should just instantaneously go and get credited. Where, as I said, in the FedWires, somebody has to do something with it it kind of exchanges hands several times.
Okay. Well, I mean, how does FedNow service actually work?
Well, there's a lot of pieces in this for to work. So you have what we call an end user, you have a financial institution, and most importantly, the core provider.
Mm.
So in order for the FedNow service to work, is the credit union's core provider has to be set up where there's an interface between our application that we're going to provide, and it's going to talk to the core provider at the credit union. The end user will submit that payment. So again, remember, we're going to be receiving. So the end user is going to be somebody outside of our institution. They're going to send the payment to maybe one of our member credit unions into their members' accounts. We're going to set up this connection where that payment comes to us. through that end user, comes through the FedNow network, and that's the other piece to it. We're going to have the connection to the FedNow network. Once that payment comes through, we pass it directly to that credit union and automatically gets credited to that core account. And it looks at the account number and it posts it automatically to the core. So nobody has to touch anything with that payment.
Wow. Okay. All right.
Okay. And once that, and one thing to add, once that payment is made, there's notifications that'll come through. So the person who sent it, they'll get a message back saying, hey, the payment's been made. Or if it's getting rejected, that reject's coming right back right away. And they're going to get that message saying, we couldn't make the payment for whatever the reason could be.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, we look at instant payments, and I can't help but think of also then faster payment services. So, how
Yeah.
does FedNow service compare to some of the other faster payment services that are already available in the market?
Okay. So when we're talking about faster payments and the FedNow, we're calling instant payments. There are faster payments services out there. So the most ones we're familiar with are your PayPal's, Venmo, Zelle, Square App Cash. I mean, the Cash App. Those right now, as you know, people are always using those.
Mhm.
But you kind of have to look at, okay, how do they actually work? So if you look at PayPal, Venmo, and the Square Cash App, that's what they call in a closed network. So basically what you're doing, it's a single provider. So the payer and the payee must be part of, both of them need to be part of PayPal or Venmo. That's how you transfer the money. But that money kind of sits in what they call a holding account, that you'll get a notification that you got money in your Venmo, but in order to get it from there to your bank or into your account, you've got to log in and you got to transfer it out. Okay. That's what they call a closed network.
Okay.
So if you look at then Zelle or a Visa Direct, and the other thing is the real-time payment network, which is through the clearinghouse. The clearinghouse is the first instant payment, processing that's happening right now. So besides FedNow, the clearinghouse is already out there doing what they call RTP payments, real-time payments, which are instant payments. So again, with Zelle and these types, they're in what we call an open loop, meaning that no matter where you're at, you're able to send money to somebody and it's going to go in directly to an account. It doesn't go to a holding account like the PayPal's and Venmo. It goes directly to an account. So that's why those payments go much faster and they're routed through, that shared network. And that's how FedNow is going to be working, is it's going to go from an account to an account.
Right. Thank you for explaining that. I mean, I'm aware of PayPal and stuff like that. And of course, to get your money into your financial institution, that's when
Right.
the fees come into play.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, and with instant payments, faster payments, I mean, unfortunately, we think of risk, we think of fraud.
Yeah.
So, what fraud prevention tools will be in place with the FedNow service, and will financial institutions need to implement additional controls to mitigate this fraud, potential fraud?
Well, and this is work in progress with the Fed as to what they're going to have available to assist financial institutions into mitigating this fraud. But just with any other payments that are out there today, credit unions should have some type of fraud mitigation in place. Okay. So you're really looking at, did they authorize the payment? Is it unauthorized? Looking at, what can they do as far as to, their approach. They need to educate their staff pretty much. They need to, you know, say about social engineering and the phishing scams, how to protect the account information, the user data and the password. Those things are kind of should already be in place. So you're kind of just taking that information, and when instant payment comes in, you're going to have to apply that in there as to how you as a financial institution is going to mitigate or deter that fraud. With the FedNow service, they are going to put in some establishing limits as to how much an institution wants to send for an instant payment. So that's one way of kind of reducing the fraud, that they have a maximum amount of limit that you're going to be able to send. And I believe it's a 500,000 limit. But again, institutions can say what limit they want to as a credit union to kind of reduce that, that exposure, should I say, of how much they want to send. They're also going to create what they call a negative list, where if certain transactions are always being rejected, the Fed will be starting to create this negative list that will be out there for institutions to see, is this somebody, or is this an account that's always being, used? So that'll kind of help mitigate things like that. And then also there's a bunch of reports that will be available as to the number of rejects, that an institution might get. So this is still being built, and these are some things that are out there, but it really comes down to, you got to put whatever mitigations you feel that are in place. When it comes to when we offer this service, when we get to the part of the sending part, we're going to be able to have things in place from that sending thing that we'll be able to share with our members as to what we do to, whatever applications we're going to use in order to send these payments through, and now how to authenticate into creating these payments.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you're saying some of the things that I routinely hear. Educate, educate, educate,
Yes.
educate your members, educate your staff, when it comes to the fraud and the risk things.
Yeah.
So how can a credit union get ready for the FedNow service? What integrations, are needed?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, the main piece to driving the instant payment is the core system, your core system. So the first thing that I would do is get in contact with your core vendor. Just ask the question, okay, instant payments, FedNow instant payments are coming down the road. What, are you going to be able to support this? Okay, because as I said, it's a 24/7 process. So as you know how core providers are, there's an end of day process. So they've got to balance and do everything and then turn over for the next day. So that can still happen. But then again, these payments still could be coming in to be credited to your members' account. So you want to talk to your core vendor to say, okay, how are you going to handle this? What's going to happen from your side?
Mhm.
And then from there, once you have that information, you make that business decision. Is the faster payments going to be right for you? And then what we will do is Vizzo, from the Vizzo side, the integration part is, since we will have the connection to the FedNow network, we will be able to work with you and your core vendor as well as our payment vendor, and we'll get our payment vendor and your core vendor talking together to help build this interface to your core system. So that's really the main focus of how this is going to work. So once we get that, then we'll be able to work and automatically post these instant payments for you.
All right. And why would a credit union want to utilize, Vizzo Financial for the FedNow program?
Well, it comes down to cost and time. So I'm sure credit unions can relate. They have a budget, they have things. And when you deal with the Fed directly from your institution, from a financial institution to the Fed, there's going to be costs involved. You're going to need servers. You're going to need, all the testing and paperwork, everything set up. What we do at Vizzo, we're going to take care of all that for you. We will be establishing that connection to the Fed now. So that takes that part for your credit union out of the network, or out of the process, so to say. You come to us, we take care of that. The only thing that we will work with you on is, we will, as I said, work with your core vendor. We will take care of setting that up and getting that interface set up. We will then bring you in from your perspective when we start testing to make sure that the process is going through your core system as you expect it to see and that things are posting. And the last thing is you don't have to maintain an account at the Fed. We as Vizzo, as the correspondent, will take care of that. We set the account up. You will be part of that account. We maintain that account. We will provide those reporting tools to show you what instant payments went through and giving you all of that reporting.
Okay. Um, Now, if a credit union is interested in being part of the pilot with Vizo Financial, what should they do?
Well, that's work in progress. As you know, we're still in that pilot phase. So, what would suggest is contact your account manager first. If you are definitely interested in doing this, when we get to the part where we're ready to bring on or bring into the testing phase any of our credit union or their core providers, we will then set up and have a conversation with you and your core vendor to work out those procedures, who the point of contact is, and you will then become part of that pilot testing. So again, there's a lot of pieces involved. It's going to take some time, but once we get the process down and know what needs to be done, the process should go through smoothly. And once we get that core vendor set up and that interface set up, it's pretty much testing and testing, and then we go to production.
Okay. All right. One final question, Mike. Why do credit unions need instant payments like FedNow?
Well, it's to stay up in the market, so to say. Okay. Because right now, if you do research that's out there are about 70 countries that already use this ISO 20022 payment platform or this type of messaging. Europe, I mean, there's a lot of European countries that use instant payments already. China, I mean, you name it, they're already doing instant payments. So the US wants to get into this market. So
Mhm.
once it's valuable, you'll be able to offer new services to your members, basically.
Mhm.
For businesses, it'll help operation efficiencies. It will be able to exchange data between one person and to the customer. It'll help with the straight through processing. Nobody has to touch anything. And it's to keep up with the competition. So once we have this and we have this instant payment in there, it's just going to be things that you will be able to build and build on top of. And it's going to reduce a lot of cost. There's going to be operational efficiency in here, and it's going to be all automated. So that's the nice thing about this is you'll be able to attract new services. Maybe even a credit union doesn't have a business. They might be able to get a business member now and say, hey, we have instant payments that if a business member wants to pay through this type of channel, they'll be able to do it. So it's just a lot of opportunity that's out there.
Right. Well, Mike, thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time. Any final thoughts or comments for our listeners today?
Just stay tuned as to communications that are coming out through Vizzo on instant payments. Maybe, I don't know, Jamie, if you have this to share with anybody who is asking, but the FedNow has a page on the Federal Reserve website. It's called FedNow Resources. If any credit union wants to learn about it, there are videos. I think they have like 70 different things out there as to, how it works, what the benefits are. It's really, really a lot of useful information that's out there to get yourself familiar of what an instant payment is, how you can use it, and basically the whole process of how the message flow works.
All right. Mike, thank you. And as Mike said, yes, the Fed has a lot of resources on their website,
Yeah.
and you can definitely take a look at that. And I also just want to close with, Vizzo is proud to be featured on the Federal Reserve's new FedNow Services Provider Showcase. It's an online resource designed to connect financial institutions looking to adopt and innovate upon the FedNow service with service providers offering instant payment solutions. To learn more, visit Vizzo Financial's profile in the FedNow Service Provider Showcase on fednowexplorer.org. All right, Mike,
There you go.
thank you. Thank you so
Okay.
much. As
All right.
always, to everyone, thanks for listening and make it a great day.
Okay. Bye-bye.